What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. Tonight, it's March 14th. Happy Pi Day. It's about 5:30 p.m. Central Time over here for me. We're gonna go over the NFL free agency so far. There's been a lot of movement going on. It's Tuesday night again. We've had people signing since yesterday. More signings to come, but we do have a lot of heavy hitters out of the way. And of course, we'll get to Aaron Rodgers at some point, the thumbnail of the video. But let me hop into a screen share here. And if you've been a part of the fellowship, you guys know that this is a fantasy football podcast. So we pretty much focus on the quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, and tight ends. Not a lot of movement at the fantasy positions for the most part here. So what I have pulled up is Spot Track. I did put a link in the description if you want to check it out yourself. And then you can check, you can filter by team, by position, by statuses, all that good stuff here. But we're just going to kind of review who's been signed. And we'll kind of go, I guess we'll start at the top here. These are the biggest contracts. Of course, Derek Carr got the big one before free agency started. 4 years, $150 million. And then Mike McGlinchey, the right tackle here from 49ers, goes to Denver. Denver making a ton of moves in these first 2 days of free agency here. So they signed him for 5 years, $87.5 million. There's Javon Hargrave here from Philadelphia. So the Niners, they lose the right tackle, but they gain one of the best defensive tackles in the game. That 49ers defensive line is going to be pretty hot for years to come here. 4 years, $84 million. Jawan Taylor goes from Jacksonville to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs did lose a tackle here, but they did gain one. So they lost Andrew Wiley down here to the Commanders, but they gained one of the best tackles in the game in Jawan Taylor. Jimmy Garoppolo gets the starting job for the Raiders, going from San Francisco. 3 years, $72.75 million. We'll see what happens there. The Raiders were not done yet. We'll get to more of their moves. And then the Bears. The Bears had the most cap space entering the free agency, and they have made a couple big splash moves on defense. Tremaine Edmonds, the former Buffalo Bill, going to Chicago for 4 years, $72 million. Jesse Bates, the safety from Cincinnati, going to Atlanta, 4 years, $64 million. Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle, Minnesota, going to Cleveland, 4 years, $57 million. Jamel Dean staying in Tampa Bay for 4 years, $52 million. Defensive end Draymond Jones going from Denver to Seattle. So Denver did lose a guy here, but then they added two other players here, pretty big hitters. Ben Powers, Baltimore guard, 4 year, $51.5 million. So that's very nice, for Russell Wilson gaining two starters on the offensive line. They did struggle on the offensive line last year, so I like the addition here. Zach Allen, a nice young edge rusher here, going from Arizona to Denver, 3 years, $47.75 million. So Denver, three players here on the list so far, making some big moves on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive line. Allen Lazard, probably the biggest cog, I think, in the Rodgers decision is it's all about money. The Jets don't have a ton of cap space available for this year. They're probably trying to figure out how to squeeze the free agents in that Rodgers wants. Allen Lazard was probably on that list, going from Green Bay to the Jets on a 4 year, $44 million deal, $22 million guaranteed. So Lazard probably going to end up being their number 2, number 3 wide receiver. Of course, Garrett Wilson's not going anywhere. We'll see what happens with this Rodgers deal. Tomorrow at noon, Pat McAfee's show, there's going to be some kind of update. Rodgers going on the show. We'll see if he finally announces he's going to the Jets or not. But either way, Lazard adds to a pretty nice, already good list of weapons in the New York Jets team. And we'll see about Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore's probably headed to Green Bay, but we'll see. Bobby Okereke from Indianapolis to the Giants, 4 years, $40 million. James Bradbury from Philly, staying in Philly, 3 years, $38 million deal. Jacoby Myers, this was another good get for the Raiders. And if you remember, head coach for the Raiders, Josh McDaniels, that was the offensive coordinator for Jacoby the last handful of years while he was in New England. So a pretty modest deal, 3 years, $33 million. It seems like $10, $11 million is the biggest receiver contracts we're going to see this offseason. So Jacoby Myers adds to a nice list of weapons. And I guess it's not a free agent move, but the Raiders did trade Darren Waller today to the New York Giants. So the starting offensive weapons for the Raiders are going to be Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, and then currently they're without a tight end right now. probably have a good chance to resign the former tight end Foster Moreau. We'll see if he gets paid elsewhere. But right now, the Raiders do have a vacancy at tight end. There's Cam Sutton from Pittsburgh to Detroit. Good signing there. The Lions need to fix that defense. I expect them to spend more money on the defensive side of the ball. 3 for $33 million. Nate Davis, a pretty good center here, going to Chicago. So you like to see Chicago spend some money on the offensive line. Andre Dillard, this was a big loss, I think, for Philadelphia. 3 years, $29 million to Tennessee. Larry Ogunjobi staying in Pittsburgh on a 3-year, $28.75 million deal. There's Andrew Wiley, who left from the Chiefs to go follow Eric Bieniemy to Washington, 3 years, $24 million. Matt Gay, the kicker, goes from the Rams and goes to the Colts, 4 years, $22.5 million. So interesting move there for the Colts. Von Bell, Cincinnati to Carolina, safety, 3 years, $22.5 million. There's Connor McGovern, Dallas to Buffalo, 3 years, $22.35 million. Trey Pipkins stays with the Chargers. They need offensive line help, so that's a good signing there. Chargers are in a salary cap funk. If you look at their 2024 stuff, they're going to need to restructure a lot of contracts coming up. But that's pretty much the gist of it. Now, I mean, the heavy hitters are kind of all done here. I want to shout out Josh Oliver, tight end from Baltimore, going to Minnesota. That's a sneaky good signing there. But let's just look purely at the offensive positions for fantasy football. At the quarterback position, of course, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo. Sneaky good signing here for Atlanta. Taylor Heineke is going to go in there and be the veteran backup that's going to push, of course, the second-year quarterback, who's escaping my mind right now, Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder is going to be the starter going into the year, but Taylor Heineke's got a good chance to beat him out. And if Ridder can't hold it down, Heineke at least gives him a bridge for a year or two. It's a 2-year, $14 million deal. Andy Dalton, same thing here. He's going from New Orleans to Carolina, staying in the NFC South. Assuming the Panthers are going to draft CJ Stroud, I think that's the lead candidate right now, but they could draft Bryce Young. They could draft Anthony Richardson. You never know. But either way, securing Andy Dalton at least gives them some safety net there at the backup QB position. Jarrett Stidham going from Las Vegas to Denver. I like it. 2 years, $10 million. Mike White being the Jets' going from the Jets to the Miami Dolphins, being their backup now, 2 years, $8 million. Case Keenum's going to be the backup in Houston for whatever rookie quarterback they draft at number 2 overall. And then Carolina, Sam Darnold moving from Carolina to San Francisco. So interesting shuffle there. Nick Mullins, Minnesota, staying there. A lot of good free agents left still as far as backup quarterbacks go. You got Carson Wentz, you got Mariota, Baker Mayfield, Teddy Bridgewater. I like Jacoby Brissett. Go down farther down the list. Drew Lock is still interesting. You could even think about Cooper Rush, maybe even Gardner Minshew. I actually, as a Packer fan, I'm kind of hoping something gets done here in terms of being a decent backup quarterback in Green Bay. But still some decent quarterbacks left available. The running backs, not a lot of signings here. The Dolphins were busy today. They signed Jeff Wilson to a 2-year, $8 million deal. They also got Raheem Mostert back for 2 years, $5.6 million. So they retained Wilson and Mostert. Don't know if they're going to draft or add another running back here, but I like the tandem of Wilson and Mostert. I'm actually surprised Samaje Perine goes to Denver. So Denver continues their spending spree, 2 years, $7.5 million. This is kind of a knock on Javonte Williams not being healthy. They still have Javonte Williams on their team, but there's rumors that he might not be 100% healthy to start the year. He'll be pressed to get some training camp work in August, but we'll see. I like the Samaje Perine signing, pretty solid veteran there, can do everything, pass blocking, goal line back, all that good stuff. The Denver Broncos did lose Mike Boone to Houston. Boston Scott stays in Philadelphia. Matt Breida stays in New York. And then probably the most exciting one for fantasy football is Rashad Penny going to the Philadelphia Eagles. I haven't seen the terms of the dollars yet, but Rashad Penny going to Philadelphia, and they also retained Boston Scott. So Miles Sanders kind of tweeted out a goodbye tweet saying he's not returning to Philadelphia. So it looks like for the Eagles, you're going to have Rashad Penny be the banger. You're going to have Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell be the three-headed monster there. So I'm rooting for Penny. I think if he can stay healthy, he's going to have a pretty fun fantasy season coming up. But still, a ton of good running backs available here. You got Chase Edmonds is good as a number 2 back. Kareem Hunt deserves a chance somewhere. J.D. McKissick's probably not going to be playing much with that neck injury he sustained. But Jamal Williams needs to get signed. Deonta Foreman There's Ronald Jones, there's Miles Sanders, Gio Bernard, Jerick McKinnon. You also have guys like Royce Freeman, Latavius Murray, who I expect to go back to Denver, Kenyon Drake, Justin Jackson, David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, Damian Harris, Alexander Madison. That's probably the best group of four. Those guys are probably going to be the next top guys to go. Further down the list, just some names here like James Robinson, Ty Johnson, some guys right here. But this is the chunk right here. Montgomery, Singletary, Harris, and Madison. Super excited to see where those guys go because they have chances to be, a starting running back in the league. Let's move on to the wide receiver market, which today, finally, Lazard and Jacoby Myers get off the market. That's pretty much those were the heavy hitters. It's a pretty weak receiver market here. But again, Lazard to the Jets, 4 years, 44 mil. Jacoby Myers to the Raiders, 3 for 33. Robert Woods was a sneaky one for Houston, 2 for 15.25. Philip Dorsett also going to the Raiders. And I'm just looking at my Twitter here. I just saw something pop up from Ian Rappaport here. Someone signed for a 2-year deal. What are we looking at here? Oh, Jaron Reed, former Packer. And then Noah Brown from Dallas to Houston. So Houston, pumping their receiver room a little bit here. But top free agents left in the wide receiver market, of course, Adam Thielen, Nelson Aguilar, DJ Chark. Sounds like Randall Cobb is going to be going to the Jets. I don't expect much of Marvin Jones or Julio Jones. But Juju still needs to sign somewhere. I think Landry probably still has some juice left. I do like Mac Hollins. Not sure if he's going back to the Raiders. A couple other guys here just to shout out. Mecole Hardman and Paris Campbell. Both these guys are 25 years old, have their best ball ahead of them. I think both those guys can get some decent contracts for 3 or 4 years. I do like Richie James quite a bit. He was a nice slot receiver for New York last year. Justin Watson, a pretty interesting piece from the Chiefs. You also have, let me see, I thought there was 1 or 2 more guys down here. I like Darius Slayton a lot. Darius Slayton, and then, of course, Odell Beckham Jr., who's been rumored for the New York Jets. So a lot of fun still at the wide receiver position. And then the tight end position. Again, only Josh Oliver and Chris Manhertz have been signed so far. From tight ends, you have Mike Gesicki, Dalton Schultz, Austin Hooper, Robert Tonyan, Hayden Hurst. These are the 5 heavy hitters from the tight end free agency list here. If I go further down the list, you can still see Mercedes Lewis. There's Irv Smith Jr., who's got a pretty good potential for a nice payday, only 24 years old. And then that's pretty much it. Let me see. OJ Howard's interesting to me. Foster Moreau's probably the other big one. I think Foster Moreau's probably going to get paid starter money. So there's still a lot of fantasy assets out there for free agency. But again, tomorrow is the big day, guys. Tomorrow is the big day. I'm going to pull it up here. Let's see, Aaron Rodgers, where are we? So the Colts, they cut Matt Ryan today. Still have to pay him $12 million a year, but they cut Matt Ryan. Very interesting. Colts are probably going to end up tanking this year to get Caleb Williams in the 2024 draft. But here we go. This is the one. Be a friend, tell a friend. You are cordially invited. Tomorrow, Wednesday, March 15th, 1 p.m. Eastern. Aaron Rodgers is going to be live on Pat McAfee. That's going to blow up the internet. So that's going to test the whole free agency, and that's going to reset some things. But super fun. Just wanted to make a quick video for you guys showcasing all of the free agent moves so far. Again, I focused more on the offensive side of the ball, but you can always check out that link in the description below and check it out for yourself. But that's going to do it for me. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening, and we'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.